One of the things that I noticed when looking through Neal Carter's photographic albums were these moments of camaraderie amongst mountaineers. Accidents do happen. What is that bond between mountaineers, and what was Neal known for, in the community in these types of situations? Glenn?
In general terms, I think it comes about because mountaineering is not really safe. It's not a safe activity. And if you're off on an expedition, say for 10 days up in the Meager Creek area, for example, you spend 24 hours a day with your comrades there. And if you're tied to them on a rope, if you're doing rope climbing, then basically you're trusting that other person, your people, with your life, and they're trusting you. So if you don't have this element of trust, things can go sideways fairly quickly.
Mrs. Mundy once told me that whenever there was a mountain accident anywhere in this part of the world, the first person they ran to for assistance to solve the problem was Neal Carter. He was cool and could quickly figure out what to do and how to rectify the situation. He was by far the most trusted mountain rescue person we had at the time back in the first half of the century.
The maps were poor, both when Karl and I and Neal were starting out. And one of the things Neal did was in 1931, he published an article, and it basically, in 3 issues of this journal, walks you through the process of making maps. And one of the techniques he used was take pictures from various places and put dots on various things. And he would, with his compass, take a bearing to each of the points marked in the photo. And he'd also take an elevation. And if you do that for a number of points, you can plot these together and you can make these things and make quite a decent map this way, showing the relative locations of where things are.
One of his best maps was the Garibaldi Lake area, where he actually made 2 baselines at opposite ends of the lake and made the exact distance from one end of the line to the other, and then photographs from the ends of those lines. And from that, he actually made a fairly reliable topography map. And I compared that map to more recent maps of Garibaldi Lake area made by government officials. I found that the elevations were fairly close. So he knew what he was doing, even back in the 1920s, of how to make a topographic map.
This was done before air photographs, like he was doing these maps before air photos. So he was doing all this on the ground with basically low tech, no fancy equipment or anything, just a compass and a clinometer to measure angles. When air photos started coming along in the late 40s, that sort of revolutionized the way topographic maps were made, not only in Canada, but around the world.
I'm wondering if either of you want to talk about how mountaineering has changed since Neal's time, and then if you could then reflect on how things have changed since your time as climbers, bringing us up to current times.
Karl and I think, would probably put ourselves in terms of mountaineering style and equipment more in the Neal Carter camp than in the modern day camp. As the equipment had changed quite a bit, the clothing and the boots were somewhat different and better, but the actual mountaineering tools were not that much different. And in those days, of course, unlike today, there's no GPS, there's no spot or in-reach devices, there's no satellite phones, there's no cell phones. You basically were on your own if you're in the hills there. And of course, for the very high-end climbers, the equipment is quite different and stuff I'm not really comfortable with anymore. I like my old 60s, 70s stuff, which the modern climbers think that stuff belongs to the museum. They look at what I use. And I think, you're walking on this museum gear. People said that to me. And we were basically, to a certain extent, explorers. Now, of course, it's the hardest way up something. I'm not putting this down. I'm just saying it's a difference. And rather than particularly the easy ways, because the easy ways have all been done and people always want to challenge themselves. So they'll go find something harder or more different. So things have changed, but it's just a question of degree, but people are still trying to explore their own inner boundaries, I think, to a certain extent.